look at Nate Silver's 2024 electoral map based on his updated forecast. Nate Silver was the head of 538 for over a decade and is one of the most well-known election forecasters out there. Looking at how the odds have changed for both of the major party candidates, Trump was behind Harris throughout nearly the entirety of the month of August, but he has now taken a significant lead and is the clear favorite to win the Electoral College. So we're going to start off on our map by filling in the safe states. These are states that Nate Silver gives Kamala Harris or Donald Trump a 99% chance or more of winning. And so starting off with the safe blue states on the West Coast, we only have California. We also have Illinois, and then in the Northeast, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, the District of Columbia, and that will be it. This will give her just 128 electoral votes. For Donald Trump, though, we have a significantly longer list of solid states: Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana, totaling 103 electoral votes. We'll now be moving on to filling in the likely states where either candidate has between an 80 to a 99% chance at winning. So these states will still clearly favor one candidate or the other, but they are going to be slightly more competitive than the states we've already filled in. Starting off for Kamala Harris, we have Washington and Oregon. Yes, she is going to win these states, but the margin is not going to be nearly as large as what we're going to see in California. California is going to go to Harris by somewhere around 20 to 25 points, while Washington and Oregon will definitely be in the 10 to 20 point range. We also have Colorado and New Mexico, two states that generally have been shifting to the left over the last 2 decades. Just look at the election of 2004. They both went to George W. Bush, but in 2020, Joe Biden won both Colorado and New Mexico by double-digit margins. Now, Kamala Harris is probably going to do considerably worse. She's probably going to win these states by single-digit margins, but she is nonetheless the favorite. While up in Minnesota, this is Governor Tim Walz's home state. Walz has given Harris a considerable boost here. If Tim Walz was not the Democratic vice presidential nominee, Minnesota would be significantly more competitive. But as of right now, Kamala Harris has an 84% chance of winning this state, a state that no Republican has been able to carry in a presidential election since 1972. Minnesota has the longest voting streak of voting for Democrats in presidential elections, longer than any other state on this map, because it's the only state that Ronald Reagan did not win in his 1984 landslide victory over Walter Mondale. As we continue moving east, we also have Connecticut and Rhode Island. These two states simply aren't as liberal as neighboring Massachusetts. We also have New Jersey and Delaware. Just fundamentally, they are not as left-leaning as some of their neighbors. Down in Virginia, we have a state that Kamala Harris is still slightly favored in. No Republican has won the state since George W. Bush in 2004. Joe Biden carried Virginia by a double-digit margin in 2020, but just 1 year later, a Republican, Glenn Youngkin, won the state's governorship. And so today, Kamala Harris barely has an 80% chance at winning. Her odds sit at 82.8. So on her map, she is going to be the slight favorite, but this is definitely going to be a key state to watch, as Joe Biden lost the lead in the polling in Virginia before he dropped out. This is a state that can definitely get more competitive in the next 2 months. We also have Hawaii, where the Biden administration's handling of the Maui fires has been very unpopular, and Hawaii generally is a state that is shifting to the right. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won it by 32 points, but 4 years later in 2020, when Joe Biden shifted the entire rest of the country in favor of the Democrats, Hawaii actually voted more in favor of Trump than it did in 2016. So Hawaii will also be likely blue. And up in Maine, we have the state as a whole, where Kamala Harris has an 85% chance at winning, while in the 1st district, her odds are just under 99. So the 3 electoral votes, 2 from the at-large vote and 1 from the 1st district, will all go to the sitting vice president. Before we continue, only 16% of you guys are actually subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below. And so right now, it might seem like Harris is doing really well, but honestly, if you look at this map, barely any remaining states are going to go in for her favor. So we're now going to fill in the likely Trump states he has an 80 to a 99% chance at winning, and we're going to get the most obvious ones out of the way. I mean, Montana, Mississippi, South Carolina, and Alaska. There's no doubt these states are going to go to the former president for a third time in a row. Going to be the state that gets him over 270. Honestly, whoever wins Nevada is not going to make that much of a difference. It is going to come down to the Midwest in the three states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I'm going to begin in Pennsylvania, as this is generally seen to be the most important one. It's 19 electoral votes. Probably could have gone to Joe Biden if he had stayed in. Joe Biden was born in Pennsylvania. He has that connection. Democrats don't have that anymore. And so Pennsylvania, if it goes in favor of Trump, even if Kamala Harris wins Nevada and Arizona, Pennsylvania will be enough to get Trump to the White House for a second time. And so as of right now, the good news for the Trump camp, though, is that he is the favorite. He has a 61.7% chance at flipping the Keystone State, a state that he did win in 2016, along with both Michigan and Wisconsin. So it's not even near impossible for him to flip all three of these states back. And so Pennsylvania will also be lean red. We're left with just Wisconsin and Michigan right now. These two states are both going to be very, very close. Kamala Harris choosing Tim Walz to be a running mate will give her a slight boost in Wisconsin, which generally is the most conservative out of the three states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But with this boost that Walz gives Harris, Wisconsin is going to be slightly more competitive. In fact, Pennsylvania is probably going to be the most conservative out of the three this time around. And so now to fill in Wisconsin and Michigan to complete this map, for a while, Nate Silver's forecast had Kamala Harris in the lead, but today Donald Trump has taken back both of these states. Trump leads with a 52% chance of winning Wisconsin, and in Michigan, his odds are at just over that. Looking at the betting markets in Michigan, basically, we've seen a collapse for the vice president. She had a 2 in 3 chance of winning just half a month ago. Now, her odds are barely over 50%. And so both of these states, according to Nate Silver, now slightly skew in favor of the former president. And so based on his 2024 election forecast, Donald Trump is on track to win every single battleground state and get 312 electoral votes, while Kamala Harris is at 226. This would be the worst Democratic performance